that are facing people on the move in the Balkans. To speak about this, we're going to have a number of great speakers who have been involved with issues along the Balkan route for the long term. We're going to start off with some input from Alex Savitsky, who is an activist volunteering with No Name Kitchen in Patras, Greece right now. After that, we will continue with Nijada Ametasevic, who is an activist and journalist based in Sarajevo, Bosnia. And from there, we'll continue with Marta Stojic, who's an activist and researcher based in Serbia, Belgrade specifically. And finally, finish up with Jošt Žagar, who is an activist with Infokopa in Slovenia. We're going to try and split these sessions between, the first 30 minutes will be for this, introduction and discussion, and then have the second 30 minutes be for our question and answer section. So if you guys have any questions during this webinar, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A tab down below, and we'll do our best to answer them. Yeah, and I think before we start into it, it's important for us to acknowledge that we are missing an important voice in this webinar today. None of the panelists nor myself are members of the refugee migrant community on the Balkan route. And that's a really important absence for us to acknowledge and consider. We weren't able to have any members of this community in the panel today because of some IT issues, but we did ask some of our friends along the route to send in some recordings, updating us on the situation. And we just put together a short video explaining that.
Hello everyone, how are you? I hope everyone that is watching this video is good in this corona situation. My name is Mahdi and this is my friend Ehsan. So it's been like 6 months that we are in Serbia, and now in this corona situation, this quarantine, there is army all around the camp. Food is really bad. They don't treat us well. They treat us like prisoners. We take shower with cold water, and they don't give us hygienes like shampoos, soaps, and other camps. I've heard that they do physical attacks, beating people.
And we cannot go outside. I don't know why. The Syrian people, they are walking everywhere.
Hello, we are refugees from Morocco and Algeria. Look, police where they put us in the border between Kosovo and Macedonia. We was good in the camp. At morning they come and say you must out from this camp. You will going to another camp. We find us in the border. We have all proof. We were before in the camp. I have khartiya. I have ID card from Tutin. Look, from Tutin. And now I don't know. We don't have food, we don't have charge, we don't have water. Police, they bring us 6 hours or 7 hours at road. This is down, we don't know what we do. He can wake up. Maria, it's the boss of the camp. Sasa, it's police. They do this, they planning for us. Look, this is from Iran. And all, Algeria and Morocco.
I'm scared, I'm from Morocco, I'm scared.
Hello everybody, my name is Mustafa Mirza. I'm 17 years old. I'm from Morocco. I spent more than 3 months in Velika Gradosha. I will sleep in a tent in an old factory because the mirror camp didn't accept us.
We used to go to the games, and every time the police of Croatia got us, they used to beat us and they used to take our clothes, our phones, our money. We used to get back to Velika Gradosha with nothing. They really help us a lot. They used to bring us everything from food to clothes to sacrifice to everything. They really treat us like they are our family, they are our son. I don't know what we were going to do without their help.
So we just want to say thanks to the people who submitted this video. I think that, continuing on this webinar, it's important to realize that when we're talking about the situation on the Balkan route, that we're talking about the situation affecting, thousands of people who each have their own individual dreams and aspirations and pain and love in their life just in the same way as everybody else. And with this, I will introduce Alex, who again is based in Patras right now with No Name Kitchen. He's going to update us on the situation there currently.
Hello, everybody. So the question is, what is the situation for people on the move in Patras like under Corona? And to take a look at this situation, first have to look at the numbers of Corona cases in Greece. Is now around 2,600 cases, 146 people died. And even if we estimate that these numbers are not as high as in reality and multiple them by 10, it's still not that many cases. At the same time, 6 weeks ago, the curfew started, so people were told to stay at home and only leave home when there's a reason for them to go. And in this time, the biggest effect on the community here in Patras was the decrease of ships and trucks in the Patras port, because there was no way, no chance for the people on the move to leave Patras, and they were more trapped in the city than ever. And at the same time, also the attention from the police for these people, of course, increased since there were less people on the street. And when they moved around the city or went to any shops or played the game in the port, they were more visible. At the same time, though, the police violence decreased a bit in the past week, since also the police was afraid of the guys, of the people on the move, more than afraid of anyone else to catch the virus from them, which of course is not what's the reality like. Anyways, the police violence decreased a little bit since they were afraid of actually touching them. Yesterday on Monday, the curfew ended, and life is mostly back to normal in Patras. People are on the streets. It got really busy again. Mostly no one is wearing any mask, although it is sad to wear masks, but you don't really see people behaving according to the rules. And also the game started again. Like the port is full of ships again. It's operating at full capacity. You also hear every day people are able to leave Patras and make their ways to Italy. At the same time, also with Corona curfew ending, the police violence in the past 1.5, maybe 2 weeks increased severe and heavily from one day to another. There were so many beatings, so many injuries while doing the medical and taking care of the wounds from the people. Also, there's a lot of blood going on, which makes the work even harder for everyone volunteering here. And of course, it's just unbearable for the guys living here in Patras and being beaten by the police every day and every night. The most question I've been asked lately is, Alex, from the people on the move here in Patras, Alex, when is Corona going to end? And also, of course, this question refers to the question, when is the curfew ending, which ended yesterday. But it's also that I'm saying, like, Corona is never going to end. This virus is going to be with mankind now for forever. And in this question lies the big threat of the situation, because people will continue to come to Patras, people will continue to make their way to Italy, and it's a game for life and death. And this virus is now low in numbers, but it also might increase very quickly. Give it 2 months, 6 months, then the situation for the people on the move might be a whole different one. So this is like a ticking time bomb here in Patras for everyone living in Patras in Greece, but especially for the people on the move living in these hard conditions.
Thank you, Alex, for your inputs. Can I just ask, because I think that it's an important question to consider, do you know anything of pushbacks or deportations from Italy during these times in the past weeks?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the difficult thing is that I'm working here alone currently for the past 7 weeks, and time is quite limited. I try to spend as much time with masks and with wearing gloves and everything, keeping distance, but spending as much time with the guys as possible. But you can't really catch on everyone. There are like 200 people here we work with, and you can't catch on everyone with this limitation. And in the past 2 weeks, people were approaching me saying, "Hey, this friend, this guy was pushed back. He came by Italy, and I took some pushback reports with the limited time I have, and it's definitely a topic here, and there are pushbacks, a lot of pushbacks. There's a lot of internal violence, which of course there's a state-approved measure of violence from the police. I know this, I'm not stupid and stuff like this, but taking people into dark corners where no cameras are, and like beating them and kicking them in their faces, breaking teeth, breaking noses, causing wounds that bleed for days. This is no approved state violence. So internal violence is a big topic, and definitely pushbacks happening every week. Yes.
Great, thank you for your time and input, Alex. Just to explain how these processes work, in Patras it's very different than a lot of other locations along the Balkan route. Pushbacks to Patras are very intimately tied to the ferries that people on the move attempt to get into, which will take them to Italy. And pushbacks to Patras are usually from 4 different ports along the Italian coast. And these people are then returned in many cases through legal gray areas, or in some case blatantly illegal ways, back to Patras. But it's a much longer and more, I don't know, procedural process, I would say, than it is a lot of other
places. Like practically they get beaten up in Italy, then they are sticked into a small room which door is locked on the ship, and they stay there for 2 days, and at one point the door opens in Patras, and they are handed over to the port security, military, or local police, and then they are set free again to play the game the next day.
Great, thank you, Alex. With that, we will now continue with some input from Nijada, who is coming to us from Sarajevo. Nijada, take it away.
Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you, Alex. For me, this is very interesting to hear, and there are so many so many things that we can compare what's going on in Greece and Bosnia. However, what is happening at the moment in Bosnia, and what is very big problem, I think for most of the people, is that the government, as many of you know, since 2018 did not show much interest in anything that has anything to deal with the people on the move. However, we have a new government since 2019, and at the end of the year, in December, a new Minister of Security was appointed, who openly declared a war on migrants, saying that Bosnia will not be a platform where people with migrants, he's using exclusively the term migrants, or economic migrants, or illegal migrants, which is the term not recognized by the law in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So basically, he said that Bosnia will not be a platform for disembarkment of a big number of migrants, illegal migrants, as he said. He claims that most of the people in Bosnia are from countries where there is no war, and his understanding of being a refugee and being a person who has a rights is very different from what the law says, or international conventions, and even the constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina. However, with the corona, this new government used the opportunity to close down all the camps, and basically to forbid any movement of migrants and refugees in Bosnia. That resulted with more than 6,000, maybe even 7,000 people who are locked down in camps in Bosnia, which are run by IOM, International Organization for Migrations, which are very bad camps, where food is scarce and not very, it's not something that people are happy with, where people don't have enough space, where they queue in lines for food for a couple of hours, and where they are treated, as many of them keep telling us, as animals. These camps are very often places of violence. And yesterday, or day before yesterday, actually, we had a case in Ušivak in Sarajevo, one of the two big camps in Sarajevo, that one man from Kurdistan, father of four, and children are here with him in the camp, was killed or he died in accident. I'm not sure how to define this. IOM at the moment is not giving much information about what did happen inside. However, on social networks and also through the conversation that I had with many people living in the camp, but also some of the employees of the organizations who are working inside, what they told me is that the person who is responsible for death of this man belongs to security, private security, paid by IOM. So basically, it's IOM employee who done it. We will see how it will happen, and police is involved as well as prosecution. Nevertheless, even though most of the people are locked down, many people are still outside of the official reception centers, and some of them are living in hostels, in private accommodation. We still have local people who are accepting people on the move to live with them, but unfortunately many are living out in the open, in a makeshift kind of like camps, not sure how to call these places, or in abandoned and old buildings all over the country, I have to say. Probably the biggest concentration of people is still in Una Sana canton, so the area the closest to Croatian border in that side of the country. But also we have quite a big number of people who are in Sarajevo. Of course, it's not possible to establish the exact number of people who are in the streets of Sarajevo, but my estimate is that it could be up to 1,000. At the moment in Sarajevo, but also in Tuzla, as well as Kladuša, Bihać, Mostar, and across villages in the country, the help is provided by local people, as well as it was at the very beginning when the people started coming in 2018. What is different now from 2018 is that we have a huge support from different networks, including No Name Kitchen network from outside, from the European countries, who are helping us in different way, and in this way showing their solidarity and understanding that this struggle is something that we all have to do together, especially people in the countries, in the Balkan countries. And at the moment, I think that this is very, very important that we all act together in solidarity to help people on the move.
Just take a second to in Bosnia Lipa and what you see as the implications or possible risks of opening such a camp in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah. Well, from what I read, IOM, that is running this camp together with Danish Refugee Council, they're saying that this camp is a temporary shelter for people during the coronavirus. This is not what government in that part of Bosnia is saying, but they believe that this is a camp where they will send everybody they want to send. What I hear is that conditions are not good, even though they have food, which they don't complain about. However, and I mentioned that earlier, the problem with the new minister is not only that he imposed such drastic measures, but that he he encouraged local police department to very often use violence when interacting with people on the move, and that is what is happening around this new camp Lipa, which, as I said, is run by IOM and DRC. But the moment when people leave, and they are leaving because the conditions are not good, people are sleeping under big tents, where more than 100 people are sometimes together and very, very close to each other, which is definitely something that is not safe at the moment. But when they try to leave, we received quite a few reports about the violence of the local police, which is done in a very similar way like Croatian border police is doing for years now. Also in Sarajevo, we noticed increase of violence. I tried to speak with the local police in Sarajevo as well as the local police in Bihać. In Bihać, I did not get the answer when I asked about these reports about the violence. And in Sarajevo, they didn't confirm the violence, they didn't deny, but they told me that it's a part of cleaning the streets of migrants according to the order given by the Ministry of Security. What I'm very worried is that IOM and UNHCR and DRC that are present in Bosnia, that are more than involved, basically they are managing the migration, everything that has to do with migrations in Bosnia, they are very quiet about this, as well as they are quiet about the violence at the borders that we all know exists for years now.
Great, thank you for talking to that point, Ijara. With this, we will pass over the screen to Marta Stojic, who's based in Belgrade, Serbia at the moment. Marta, welcome.
Okay, hello, I'm Marta from Belgrade. Even before the declaration of the state of emergency in Serbia, there was an increase in anti-migrant discourse and more restrictive treatment of migrants by state officials. It is practically, you all remember the very tense situation on the border between Greece and Turkey in the end of February, and it was practically just a continuation afterwards in the treatment of migrants in Serbia. So even before the government issued a decision of temporary limitation of movement of asylum seekers and irregular migrants, as they say, the people were catched in the streets and moved into the camps, practically. A couple of days later, there was another decision regarding the status of foreigners in Serbia, and it was said that everything will be practically stopped until the state of emergency stops. This means that people cannot initiate asylum procedure or anyhow begin to regularize their status. The state of emergency was declared on 15th of March, and immediately army was sent practically into the streets to protect not only I don't know, state borders, but also post offices. Just to share this, they were present everywhere. So here we see Belgrade main pedestrian zone, post offices, and everything. The rationale that was behind putting army around the camps was to protect migrants from getting infected by coronavirus, but with all those different measures and high presence of completely armored members of military. It is actually that migrants are those who are presented as a threat to the rest of community. So people are quarantined, they cannot go out at all. There is the camps, there are two new camps have been put in use, and also some other which have been temporarily closed in last period, like Miratovac on the border with North Macedonia, and also Morović camp near the border of Croatia. And they are all guarded by very heavy armor. So for example, this one. There have been, of course, people are not, people have not been explained why they are kept inside the camps. In that way, why they cannot go out? There is a lack of food, a lack of soaps. For example, There is almost anecdotal thing that people have been in Adashevci camp near the border with Croatia. People have been provided with masks, but with no soaps. So there are a lot of problems that people are facing on daily basis, and communication going out from the camp and getting inside the camp for anyone who would like to show support, like different NGOs and activist groups. It is not allowed due to that quarantine status. Even though the borders are officially closed, there is no circulation for commercial, for citizens, for foreigners. There have been new arrivals are happening, of course, and in maybe first 20 days of April, there have been almost 500 new arrivals to Serbia. What is interesting that in March there was when the emergency state was declared, there was an increase of arrivals from Bosnia and Herzegovina to Serbia, and also from Hungary. Now people who are mostly arriving from Northern Macedonia and from Albania. There are really different. One of the biggest issues that spreads from even the end of last year is the anti-migrant discourse that is spreading not only in Serbian public but also among the officials. There is one Facebook group which in just a couple of weeks reached from, I don't know, 10,000 persons to 330,000 followers. In public discourse, migrants are always presented as a threat, and on several occasions where they tried to go out from the camps, the army who is around the camp yard, even fired bullets in the air to prevent, I don't know, to scare people. There is a lot of violence happening inside the camps that people are not on different levels. Of course, there is a lack of food that is like a kind of that overall violence, like not to be allowed, not to be free, not to know what is happening. But also after those several attempts to go out, people, special units came into the camps and took people into the like collected people, gassed them, beaten them, and then sent them to different camps. So for example, Morović camp. And also there is one situation that after maybe 2 years, there was one large pushback directly from the camp to the border of North Macedonia. It was Camp Tutin, that is on the south of Serbia, and the people were told that they would be sent to Preševo, but instead they have been sent to Northern Macedonia. So the situation is quite difficult, and we will now from Thursday there will be a lift of the state of emergency, and we will see what will happen in the future. But now people who are foreigners without legal status are in the worst situation, together with some like Roma people and some other marginalized populations. That would be it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your input, Marta. I think that's really informative and really useful to understand how the situation in Serbia is progressing. And I think that it's also worth pointing out that at the beginning of this session, we shared a clip of a video from Madi, who said that he was in Konjača camp, and how much of a prison it felt like during this time. And that is because, in effect, for the past 2 months, these camps in Serbia have been treated as militarized prisons for their residents. Now I will hand over the screen to Jost, who is again working with Infocolpa and is based in Ljubljana.
Hi everybody. So I would do a short introduction of how the pushbacks are happening from Slovenia to Croatia and then to Bosnia and Herzegovina. So how the people have been passing for the 2 years is going from north of Bosnia through Croatian forest to Slovenia, but in the spring of 2018, 2 years ago, it happened that in Slovenia, the Ministry of Interior coordinated systematic practice of pushbacks. Unlike in Croatia and Slovenia, these pushbacks are being done under the readmission agreement. So when people cross the Croatian-Slovenian border coming from Bosnia after, 5 days, some are caught by police, taken to police station, but they are not able to ask for asylum because the police ignores their asylum request. This happened that from the closest police station to Velika Kladuša, Chernomel, it's around 70 kilometers. It was that until May 2018, people who cross border were usually able to ask asylum in Slovenia and were taken then to asylum camp and to further procedure. But in June, it happened that out of 400 people who were at police station, only 13 of them were able to ask for asylum. So this kind of practice began to be normal at all police stations around the southern border of Slovenia. So the situation we have now is that if people wish to seek asylum in Slovenia, they have to come directly to the asylum camp because the police is ignoring asylum requests. Despite this being known, there has been no action by the ombudsman or the special prosecution. We have had 2 governments change, but the practice remained the same. So when people cross the border and are caught by police, they are taken to a police station where their fingerprints are taken. There is an interview and so on. But when somebody asks for asylum, he is faced with threats, verbal threats, physical threats, and usually after one night taken to the border station with Croatia, given to Croatian police, then transported to the Bosnian border where people are forced to go back to Bosnia on foot. So these are the wristbands that are given during the readmission, and they were found in border areas in large numbers in Bihać. In the last 2 years, Slovenia deported to Croatia 16,000 people. For the year 2019, for last year, 70% of people who crossed border, who irregularly crossed border through Slovenia and were processed at police station, 70% were readmitted to Croatia. 2018 it was 50% and before 40. So what we are seeing is increase in repression the last 2 years. What we did from September to November 2018 was we had a form of a phone. When people crossed to Slovenia, they could call us, and then we would inform human rights organizations and police about their intention to seek asylum, about their location, and about their situation. But because this proved ineffectual, police kept pushing people back to Croatia, despite that different organizations from Ombudsman to Peace Institute to Amnesty International were informed of the group's intention to seek asylum. Police kept denying people right to asylum procedure. So about the corona situation, In Slovenia, it happened that we, in the beginning of March, a right-wing government arrived to power and are pushing for the activation of a law to authorize army to act as police in the border areas. Army is already present in the border areas in Slovenia. We have from the new government open intention to go in the way of Hungary in attempts to legalize pushbacks. The same officials who were present in closing the border in the spring of 2018 are employed again by the Ministry for Interior to prepare new legislation. Regarding the situation of camps, there is quarantine, but from what friends tell me, that is very lax, depending on individual security. So people can leave the camp, buy things, and so on. The other thing is that unlike in Bosnia, in Slovenia, it is very hard for people without papers to live outside. Now we have seen that police is using the quarantine as a reason for taking people to detention center. And the issue is that when you arrive to detention center, you only have 3 days to file a complaint, and the access to any lawyer is quite difficult, but they can keep you in detention for 6 months and then again for another 6 months in administration prison. So yeah, that would be it.
Thank you very much for going over all of that, Jost. It's really informative. Just to pivot into the question and answer section, I think that one person in the chat asked a question which I think is quite relevant to Slovenia's position on the route. They asked if do people on the move succeed in crossing borders? When they go on these transit attempts, do they actually succeed in trying to cross the borders?
So when the police started systematically denying right to asylum, the route became more dangerous. This means that people were walking through forest for up to 14 days to come to Italy, because in Slovenia they could not, it was impossible to ask for asylum. So now with the quarantine going on, people are staying in their homes, and because it was usually the local people who were calling and informing police about groups crossing. So I guess it is in a way easier, but in a way that it's easier that you still have to walk for 10, 14 days across rivers, forests, and so on to get somewhere where it's not safe at all.
And yeah, and that is to say that I think that, you know, borders by their very nature are porous. They're impossible to completely seal off. And although there has been an increase in securitization in the region, people still have reasons to, you know, need to cross these borders. There's still conflict, there's still extreme poverty in the world, and for this reason, people have, you know, this extreme motivation to attempt to cross these borders. And when you have this extreme motivation, you will always have people who are finding ways, perhaps very dangerous ways, as the region becomes more securitized as its borders, but people will continue to try. Moving on to another question, Nijera, I think that perhaps this would be interesting one for you to answer. Marianas asked, we've been hearing similar practices of violence against people on the move throughout the Balkan route. Do you think this is due to the migration policies imposed by the EU, or is it unrelated?
Well, definitely, I think it's related to the EU policies and the closed borders which are imposed from the EU to the Balkan countries, not only for people who are currently crossing, and trying to reach Western European countries, but also for us who are living here. If you check, you can find the data that people from let's say Kosovo and Albania, where they need a visa to travel, and it's very difficult to obtain that visa. They are among the people who are crossing through the Balkans to reach Europe, and among the people who are applying for asylum in European Union and at the moment. The silence that is coming from European Union after all the reports of violence, or after all the reports about what is happening at the moment in Bosnia, is for me nothing more than proof that this is the official policy from Brussels, which is imposed over all of our countries. At the same time, all of our countries are hoping to become part of the EU, and in order for the countries to fulfill or to have this hope fulfilled, they have to follow certain rules. And among these rules, there are many important things, but at the top are border managing and migration managing. So yeah, I do believe this is related to the policy the EU wants to impose all over Europe, not only European Union, and the Balkan is just playing its game.
Great, and this next question is a two-part question that I think that you, Nijada, and Marta could both answer, because there's very different systems of camp control between Bosnia and Serbia. Mm-hmm. But one person asked, is there any organization, either UNHCR or NGOs, allowed to enter and monitor the situation in the IOM monitored camps during the quarantine?
That would be a little bit strange that UNHCR is monitoring IOM. I think it's not possible. UNHCR is present inside, and UNHCR is part of this game that is going on in Bosnia for now 2 years. IOM is the lead organization and the organization which receives the most of the money from the EU, because the state do not receive the money, but it's IOM, and IOM dictates what will happen. And that's why, also to Mariana's question, that's why this is what I find as a proof that this is the EU policy, because the money that they are giving in Bosnia are not giving to a state, but are giving to IOM, which has to implement the policy that their donors want them to implement. They're very good in doing that. But no, nobody is monitoring. We tried, me personally, and several other people who are considered to be human rights defenders, or journalists, or people who are in general interested in human rights. We try to obtain permissions to enter the camps and to do monitoring. We didn't get these permissions. Me personally, 6 times I was refused to enter the camps. And I think that many others who tried the same were not allowed to enter the camp and do monitoring. If we enter, everything we do, we have to do accompanied by IOM and a private security which is paid by IOM. So I don't see anybody in Bosnia is doing the monitoring of the situation inside of the camps.
Great. And Marta, given the Serbian context in which the IOM does not administer control of the camps, rather it's the Serbian Commissariat for Refugees and Migration, what would you say the amount of monitoring inside, of independent monitoring inside the camps are in Serbia at the moment? Mm-hmm.
Okay, since the beginning of implementation of the asylum system that is in place now in Serbia, this means since 2008, it has been always difficult to get permission to enter camps and to conduct monitoring. In the beginning, UNHCR was a kind of role model and advisor to the Commissariat, which is a national institution responsible for accommodation of all types of migrants. People who came through readmission agreement, people who ask for asylum, and so on. Some independent individual monitoring, it's almost impossible, and every group which would like to go inside needs to get the permission from the Commissariat. not only for the group, but also for the individuals who are entering. Therefore, there is not a good communication with, from Commissariat and the public. And there is a lot of speculation what is happening inside, what is happening outside. There is, for example, there is a possibility of cover-ups of different difficult situations. There is a kind of UNHCR gets information, and there is information spread until the beginning of 2020. A commissariat together with UNHCR published a profile of the centers. It is a kind of very it's a graph of what is happening in each center in Serbia, and that information was further spread through UNHCR website. But now there is only information on the site of the commissariat regarding some corona virus measures, and not regarding information even about the number, capacities, how occupancy of the centers, etc. Occasionally we get information about the number of people, and also from different politicians who usually try to calm down the Serbian public, that migrants are tamed and they do not represent a threat to the population. And that is when we receive like update of numbers if we are not following reports from UNHCR. So that's it. It is very. We only get information from people inside the camps to people they know outside. Different. Majority of NGOs stopped working with the declaration of state of emergency and retreated to work from home. That is something on the state level. For example, in Belgrade, there is only one organization that is still working and providing work in the field and provide aid on day-to-day basis. So it is really difficult to monitor and to get some objective insight of what is happening inside the camps, besides sporadic videos that come to public through different private channels. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer, Marta. This next question that we have from Matthias, and a number of other people are actually asking similar questions. I don't know if I can ask any one particular person within the chat about it, but I suspect that everybody would be able to have some sort of opinion on it. The question was, from your experience, do you think civil society is being persecuted and criminalized along the Balkan borders? If any of the panelists want to take that, Jost or Alex, do you have any inputs on that question?
From my side, it definitely rings a bell, because they're not only criminalized, the people on the move here in Patras, from the majority of the people in Patras, not all, not everyone. There are also there's a wide community of people supporting our operation and supporting also other organizations we work with. So I can't speak for everyone here in Patras, but anyhow, there's a wide majority of people in Patras who not only criminalizes the people on the move down here, but look at them and understand them as people of not second grade or anything, but even below. When you walk with the people to the hospital, when you walk to any associations through the city, to any shops, the looks you get are just the worst. And of course, now with Corona, it's not only criminalization, it's also like these people, of course, they spread the disease the most, although no one in Patras is wearing masks, and they're not anyhow behaving according to the laws. and to the roots under Corona. And so this is just everyday life, and I can't imagine how it is for the people on the move living here. It's quite hard, yes.
Nijada, on that point, I'm wondering if you, because I think in Bosnia currently, it's quite a big conversation. Can you talk about how criminalization of solidarity or civil society functions for local people providing support in the country?
Jack and I, we know each other for quite a long time, and you know that I'm not very willing to talk about the criminalization of us, people who choose to do what we are doing. We can leave any moment we want, and that's a big difference. Is there a pressure? Yes, there is a huge pressure. I was taken to the court already. There is a police taking our IDs. The pressure is also coming from the politicians who are using all these terms like illegal migration, declaring a war on refugees and migrants. So, but I think the much bigger problem, as Alex was talking about, is the criminalization of people on the move that are presented in the public and by a large number of media in the region as criminals, as illegal, kind of like threat to all of us, and ignoring their rights is something that is putting all of us in danger. And I think really it's a lesson we all should have learned long time ago from the Second World War. That and you can for sure remember the famous quote by the priest who said, like, one day they came for that group, the other day for that group, and at the end they came to pick me up and to take me to the concentration camps. Now in Bosnia we have concentration camps again after 25 years. And yeah, people who are put inside are criminalized, and people who are close to them are probably part of this enemy group, to put it in that way. But we should all be afraid if those who are criminalizing people on the move, putting pressure on people who are helping, if they will continue doing what they do, and if one day we will all become enemies of them and what they will do to all of us. That's something that I'm worried about quite a lot, not only when it comes to the Balkans, but anywhere in the world, because we are living in the world where fascism is again very present, and we have to fight against fascism all the time and every day with all the means that we have.
I think that's a really great point that you bring up, Nijada, and I just want to take the opportunity to bring up the point that Victor Pozas said in the chat, that is about the recent threats from the Bosnian security minister Radončić to basically deport all of the unregistered people on the move in the country. I think that you're right. You do see increasing pressure of civil society, of activism in the region, but the real threats, or the most serious threats that are being brought up, are being targeted or communicated against people on the move. We're just about at our time, but before we end, I just want to pose one more question to Jost, because there were several questions about the actual effects of COVID-19 on the refugee migrant population in the region. Jost, can you speak to, at least in Slovenia, if there have been any positive cases of COVID-19 within the refugee migrant community?
There was one, but it was quickly, the person was quickly isolated. Otherwise, no, there haven't been any real issues, even among the Slovene nationals. There have been quite few infections regarding this quarantine and the epidemic. The issue is that the only thing that is talked about in the media is the is the quarantine and the epidemic, and a lot of measures are taken kind of discreetly without any issues in the direction of repression.
And I think that it's a great point that so few, people within this community in Slovenia, but also throughout the entire Balkans, have contracted this virus. Although at the same time, you have large sections of society in the Balkans portraying, the classic racist trope of foreigners, or refugees, or migrants as disease-carrying people, which is proven to be completely false and fabricated during this quarantine. All right, so with that, I think we're going to end our session. Thank you so much to everybody who came and attended and asked questions. We really appreciate it. We have been recording the webinar today, and it will go up to on our social media profiles. And what's more, over the next 2 days, we will have a session in Italian and a session in Spanish as well. So if you know anybody who wasn't able to join today's session because of a language barrier, this will be available over the next 2 days. Yeah, and like Nijada said, I think that there can be a tendency within volunteer or activist NGO communities to, center this field around themselves. And I really hope that that's not what we did today, because the voices that do matter, and the people who are facing the persecution and the danger and the risk on a day-to-day basis, state perpetrated violence and danger and hatred, are the people on the move. And that's important for us to keep in mind. But again, thank you all for coming. And yeah, stay well.